Hi there, my name is Kay Moon, and I am a twin flame channel and Western astrologer. And this is a video about the full moon in Gemini taking place on December 7th at 11:07 p.m. If you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States, please check a time zone converter for your local time. I'm so excited to be doing this particular full moon. I think this is the last full moon we have for 2022 together. I believe, if I'm correct, the next full moon will be in January of 2023. And so this full moon carries its own significance around completions and closures and endings. It's the last full moon as well before the solstice hits, and the shift in the northern hemisphere from dark to light and southern hemisphere from light to dark takes place. And so it's a significant energy of transformation, completions, moving from one stage to the next. And I'm sure many of you really feel that in the air at this time, where somehow, some way, especially because there's so much mutable energy in this chart, so many planets in the signs of Gemini, Sagittarius, Pisces, or Virgo. The mutable energies are about shifting from one state to another state because there's so many planets in the mutable energies. I'm sure you feel the palpability of this change in your own lives and seeing it around you and the lives of others. The only thing to do with mutability is to flow, just to keep flowing, let things flow, go, bend a little bit rather than stiff back yourself, bend and flex rather than hold on and dig in. It's a bend and flex type of moment. I will say that if you were hoping to chat with me before the end of the year, I think the December calendar might be fully booked already. I added one extra day and that sold out really quickly. The January calendar is open. So if you'd like to have a look at your year ahead when it comes to your astrology, anything that you're planning, any challenges that you know you want to take on next year, any changes you'd like to make as you move into 2023 around health or money, business or job, career, school or family or home. Now's a great time to go ahead and get that reading in so that we can look at how to work with the energies of 2023 in a way that really supports you instead of feeling like you're trudging uphill. My calendar is available at kmoonastro.com, and the link to that is below the video. You can grab a personal reading with me for 30 or 60 minutes, and I'd be happy to chat with you. So let's look at something going on with my throat there. Let's look at what's happening for this full moon in Gemini. And if you listen to the end, I will give you a first look preview at the new moon that we get right after this. I'll give you a first look preview of the new moon in Capricorn coming up later this month. So full moon in Gemini takes place right here at the 16th degree of Gemini. You will see that this full moon is in conjunction, meaning sitting with the planet Mars and what we see here as the Earth. They each carry their own vibration and frequency. Moon talks about needs, it talks about emotions. We've got Earth, the frequency of the planet we sit on is about free will and manifestation. And then we've got Mars, whose neutral energy is simply about outward projected movement, ambition, drive. In the shadow, because it's retrograde, we may, in some instances, be getting more of the shadow energy. Now we're talking about aggression or war. We're also talking about the opposite of that, passivity, and not like peaceful protest, but more like just leaning back and doing nothing, taking no action at all when action is necessary. With all of these sitting together, you know, there's a vibration here in the sign of Gemini. Gemini's curiosity, communication. There's a vibration of almost like a pregnant pause, if you will. There's an energy of Something needs to happen, but nothing's happening. Something needs to go down, but why is nothing going down right now? I should do something, but why am I kind of just waiting to see what other people are going to do? One of the gifts that Gemini gives us in out of the 12 signs, the 12 frequencies here is the gift of being able to wait and see, being able to allow things to unfold and then take an action and then allow things to unfold again and then take a new action. It's a curious energy. It's an energy of rather than having a foregone conclusion or a decided destination, it's the energy of being willing to pause, observe, deduce, act, repeat. Pause, observe, deduce what's happening, have some discernment about it, take an action, repeat, pause, etc., etc. And so with this energy, some may be noticing that there's like a bit of a start and stop to certain things in your lives right now, kind of getting things scheduled or lined up or like put into place can feel quite difficult. For some reason, people's time, energy, thoughts, communications keep shifting. There can be a lot of like, I thought it would be this, but then it's that. So now I have to change the third thing because the first thing is a different thing than the second I thought it would be. There can be a lot of that little bit of like busyness in the air based on frequent and or rapid shifts that were unforeseen or unaccounted for, because Mars retrograde can also take unexpected action or be quite reactionary instead of proactive. So that can be going on quite a bit at this moment as well, where it just feels like many things are up in the air and have yet to be decided on, and that many things are up for exploration, but nothing is decided yet. So, I like this energy. Gemini tends to get a bad rap. I mean, every sign has its own bad rap. But the Gemini bad rap can be the bad rap of, oh, undecisive or flighty or, too chatty, too gossipy. But when you hold these energies in the light of neutrality, if you hold them in divine light, what you get is curiosity, you get exploration, you get a willingness to explore and discuss, and then make decisions after observation and discernment has occurred. So there's a gift in this. If instead of trying to rush to the foregone conclusion about things in our world, we are instead willing to just observe, just see. Like the real answer is I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to think until that person says X, Y, or Z, or I don't know what I'm going to do until X, Y, or Z happens. Rather than trying to play out in our brains, looking at you, opposite sign Sag, rather than trying to play out in our brains precisely what the end result ought to be, staying present in the moment, which is the gift of Gemini, is what's going to really allow us to thrive instead of shooting ourselves in the foot. And this is going to be especially true with our partnerships, because we have partnership asteroid Juno in direct 90-degree angle with this full moon. She's sitting in the sign of Pisces, which is about spirituality. And when the 90-degree angle comes together, we end up having more tension with the planets involved. So this is kind of mind and manifestation and partnership. So there's tension about what we're trying to create and manifest there. Like, what are we doing? Are we coming? Are we going? Are we up? Are we down? Are we in? Are we out? Just pause, observe, get some discernment going, deduce, take a step, not all the steps, recalibrate, recalculate, pause, observe, repeat. Okay. Further, we've got the sun down here as well, directly opposite. And so what we have, and that's what creates a full moon anyway, is sun opposite moon. But what we have going on here is this T-square. And T-squares are astrological aspects of tension. And when these tensions unfold, the tension between our essence and our needs, that's sun and moon, our personality and our emotions, there's conflict there when they're in opposition, which is why full moons, they're legendary for making people quote unquote crazy, because there can be this separation or distillation of self into very separate parts, heightened emotions at this period of time that can't necessarily be controlled, right? And so now we have Juno in the mix, our partnership asteroid, and a water sign, which is about emotions, bringing all these emotions to the surface that, just maybe had been hidden. Pisces is one of the hidden signs, maybe hadn't been thought about or considered. The trick with this is not to go whole hog on a reaction, as Mars might have us do, just to get out of the tension, just to get out of the pressure. Don't just do something to be doing something, but instead take a thoughtful action. That's one of the light sides of Gemini, is being thoughtful, so that you can take and not take the whole actions, like all the actions, all the decisions. Make the first decision and then see how that feels, and then move from there. The reason why discernment is such a key here is because we've got this opposition, we've got this Juno please. All of the mutable signs are occupied except for Virgo. And so whenever we have three mutables, three of one of the modes occupied, and right now we have three. We've got Pisces, we've got Gemini for the full moon, and we've got Sagittarius where the sun sits. We've got three of them occupied, but the fourth one is unoccupied in vibration or frequency by a planet. The way to balance the tension of the other three is for us, with our free will, with our creatorship abilities, to occupy that fourth space. Virgo stands for discernment. It stands for decision making. It stands for paying attention to the details. And so in this process, it stands for service as well. What we're being asked to do is, while all things are kind of all up in the air, nothing's quite clear at the moment, or things can be swinging kind of back and forth. Virgo, if we were to take on that energy of slowing down, having some discernment, paying attention to the details, we have the capacity to bring some calm, some rationality to situations that may feel a little bit all over the show right now. Taking things on from an earthly dimension, actions in earth, that's earth sign Virgo, instead of thinking, double thinking, and then triple thinking the double think, which Mars retrograde in Gemini for some may be creating. Taking just a small action in the third dimension just to bring things into a little bit more balance, you're going to find that that facilitates a lot more groundedness in this energy. And it starts to slow things down and put things in perspective, and gives you a vantage point around which direction you want to go, and if it's the right direction for you. I remember back when I used to coach, I used to do a lot of clarity coaching and the work that I was doing. And I provided a lot of support for people and trying to figure out, like, okay, what business do they want to be in, et cetera. When I coached, people would want to engage in a process of figuring out their brand and who they're supposed to serve and their work in the world. They wanted to work that process by thinking about it. And they wanted to have all of the kinks worked out about how it was going to look, what was going to be on the website, and everything perfectly nailed before telling anyone what they were doing. But then they would sit and take months and go, but I don't really know what I want to do. Some days it's this, some days it's that. And they, without any lived experience of, do I want to work with working mothers, or do I want to work with women writing their next chapter in retirement, without any lived experience with either group, the entire thing was an exercise in mental masturbation. The only way that clarity can come when you've never tried vanilla or chocolate ice cream is to actually try them and then decide. And that's what this energy is inviting us to do. Why don't you try it and then decide? You can change your mind. It's okay. But the process of saying, well, this sounds right, let me just try it, that's all Virgoan. That's a Virgo process of going, okay, I'll just try this, get some facts, then make some decisions. That's a very Virgo way to approach this. And the Virgo energy is what's needed at this time, leveraging that given the T square we just talked about. Okay. There can be, for those who, the uninitiated who don't understand these energies but are uncomfortable in the T square, that's pushing us all into making changes, especially in the world of relationship, given how highlighted the partnership asteroid is and Mars is here. There's a pushiness to this that's creating a level of discomfort. Like, you can't continue to live like this. You got to do something. There's a shouting in the back of our minds energetically, do something different. And so this pushiness for the uninitiated, you're going to see, makes a lot of haste. There's a vibe around this for the uninitiated that can look like a bit of a chicken with the head cut off kind of thing, if you know that phrase. I don't know if that's exclusively American. And there's an impulsivity, like impulsive actions, impulsive reactions, reactionariness to this, where if you're not hanging out in the energy of discernment, you can respond to the energetic pressure of the demand for change and just kind of lash out or do or say anything that, unfortunately, when Mars goes direct in January, you may need to take back. So, especially if anyone comes to you with new offers during this time, or wanting to create completions during this time, there's a real, there's a real, how do I put it, a need to tread lightly, tread carefully, be comfortable with the phrase, I don't know, I'm going to have to see. Or I'm not sure, I need more time to consider this. Or can we try this? And then check in. New things undertaken during a retrograde are known for not necessarily lasting when in the world of relationship, especially when it's Venus, or to a lesser degree, but still true, Mars. And so having the Mars retrograde go on during this time, breakups that are made in haste during a Mars retrograde, not likely to stay broken up. New relationships that are created in haste, they can, when Mars then goes direct, the pressure that creating the relationship was in response to can still be present without the actual solution being handled. And so it's like, oh, I'm sick of missing you. Let's just be in a relationship already. Okay, but did we ever deal with why we weren't in a relationship in the first place? Because if that's not resolved, but we're both just like, oh, relieved in the pressure of just now being together, once Mars goes direct, the problems are still going to be there. And the need to get them resolved still going to be there. And so the Virgoan discernment of this moment in time gives us the opportunity to slow down, reflect, have conversation, talk it out, really pay attention to where's the pressure coming from right now. And what is it asking of me as opposed to what is it asking other people to do so that I can feel better? What is it asking me to do so that I can feel better? That's the question to work with within ourselves for those of us who are working an ascension path. Okay. All right. And this Juno is also sitting with Nessus, and Nessus is the ruminator, creates a bit of OCD energy. So, especially during this time, there can be a ton of reflection around our relationships, like which relationships are working, which ones are not, why aren't they working, how things are unfolding, what I brought to the table, what you brought to the table. Nessus has kind of got like a clamp on our thoughts around relationship at this time so that we can resolve things that we bring to relationship that may need new action with this Mars retrograde in Gemini. May need us to try a different approach. Okay. There can be a real call in this energy, and this has been ongoing really since last year in our relationship space, but certainly ramped up this year. There can be a real call to cut ties with things that have not and do not work for us. And specifically, we're talking not about necessarily people, but Mars's feature in this full moon speaks about behaviors, and its placement in Gemini also speaks to thoughts and thought forms, thinking certain things that lead to certain actions that aren't working anymore. There's a real call in this energy to cut ties with that type of living so that we can continue to ascend. Anything that's compromising our ambitions, that's Mars, at this full moon, we're going to start to see those things start to come to completion. And this is especially true because we've got the full moon trine Saturn here. Saturn is the restorer of wholeness and integrity, bringing things back into a completeness, and anything that's been compromising our completeness in the world of actions, thoughts, and behaviors it's being brought to our attention in very clear ways at this time so that we can take an appropriate action to do something new. We've got a sextile to Chiron that's also in the mix here. This Chiron energy is showing us precisely where we have had a participatory hand in perpetuating our own sabotage through our thoughts and our actions. It's like, oh yeah, I do that, don't I? Called out. Need to drop that behavior, take on a new thing. And so there's a huge opportunity to really heal rifts between our heart and our mind, where our heart is going one direction and our mind is going another direction, and the body's doing a whole third thing. This is a huge opportunity to bring the three into alignment. Okay. If you're willing to take the initiative, that's Aries, that's Mars energy, taking initiative. If you're willing to take the initiative and open up, that's Gemini, communication, and explore what is your inner truth with a bit more discernment. And that's that Virgoan energy that the T square calls for. This is a chance to really get into curiosity about who we are. What's our real motivation? Mars is the planet of motivation. What's our real motivation for why we're doing what we do? It's a great opportunity for discernment and to get to the bottom of how we arrived in whatever discomfort we may be in at this time. Whether you're in a place where you don't like where you live, or you don't like how much money you make, or you're uncomfortable with a certain family dynamic or an interpersonal dynamic, this is the opportunity that is giving us the flashlight to go, all right, let me backtrack. How did I get here? And to retrace our steps like Mars is doing, moving backwards, retracing his steps, to really be accountable for our contribution to the perpetuation of our own suffering here. Now, For some people, when I've been noticing this in my session with clients, this has generated a sensation of feeling quite a bit caught between a rock and a hard place. We're just coming out of the season of bright lights and hard truths that we had with the eclipses and the final of the Saturn Uranus squares. And so now that these truths have been revealed that we can't look away from, there is a bit of being the sense for some of us being caught between a rock and a hard place as bright lights and hard truths are starting to give way to the necessity for tough choices and sacrifice. So I want to talk about the word sacrifice because that's definitely here. Certainly the Virgoan energy calls for it. We've got a Pluto configuration with Jupiter, which portends just a little bit of sacrifice as well. When we're talking about sacrifice, especially because Juno's also talking to the South Node and the way that she is, that's a whole conversation about sacrifice and letting go, specifically in the arena of relationships. That word sacrifice, I was like, I'm a word nerd, as you guys know. I'm a stickler about it. So I went to not the dictionary, but I like to look at the roots of the word, the etymology of the word of a word, so that I can look at, okay, what does this actually mean when we're talking about it? And so when I got into the roots of the word sacrifice, I'm going to bring it up on the screen here for you guys. Let's go back one. The root of the word sacrifice is the offering of something, especially a life, to a deity. You can consider this your divine, as an act of propitiation or homage, right? But if you skip, because they just go from the 13th century, then further back to the 12th century, it's from the Latin sacrificium or sacrificus, which is performing priestly functions or sacrifices, or look at the root, a making sacred, from sacra, which means sacred rites, and the root words to make or to do or to set or to put aside. So if let's just dig deeper. Let's go deeper down the rabbit hole. Let's be Virgo about this. What does it mean to make sacred, right? If we dig into the roots of sacred, what we have is from 1200s. It talks about to consecrate, to anoint, or to dedicate. It means to immortalize, set apart, right? And so there's something in this energy where when we go back to the chart, what we have going on is a conversation about, okay, here's what I know I need. Here's what I know I want. Here's where I want to go. I've been put through this initiation fire of demand for change this year and last year with 6 squares between Saturn and Uranus. Something in my life is different. It has to be different. I'm different. And so, in order to get to where we want to go, what's popping up are the vestiges of what the old things were at this point in time that just no longer have a place in the new space where we're headed to. And so we're seeing this play out in different places on the world stage, most notably for those of you who don't watch World Cup. And for those of you who do, you may recall that there's a player, a world-renowned famous player, Cristiano Ronaldo, who has received fame and accolades for his capacity to deliver goals. I mean, he is one of the top athletes in the world, and by all means, you could say in the last several years, he's been at the top of his game. He's probably the most sought after, one of the highest paid athletes in his field. But what's been going on with him is that there have been a series personal outbursts in private and public settings that have caused him to put himself and his needs or his desires in front of the teams. And what we are seeing now start to take place around him is teams stepping away from him because he has started to behave rather consistently in a way that compromises the team's ability to remain cohesive because he has separated himself out as not one of the team, but as me, Cristiano Ronaldo. And so, love him or hate him, that this is kind of now a repeated circumstance in his world that is very publicly playing out on the world stage at this moment in time, where there is a completion of things that no longer serve where we're going, what our ambitions and goals are. It's this type of thing that's getting weeded out of our lives right now. And so the question you need to ask yourself is, where is there a player in my life, whether it is likely not so much a person, but a behavior set, a thought form, a mindset? It could be a person too, but where is there something in my world that I am doing that is in direct conflict with exactly what it is I say I want? The behaviors he was displaying were undermining the cohesion of the rest of the team's ability to do what they need to do. They're all professionals. Can they perform? Absolutely. And simultaneously, is that a distraction? Yes. And this is a moment of eliminating distractions. This is a moment of sealing yourself to what your goals are by getting really focused on what step do I need to take and which trial and error formula do I need to take to get to that goal. And if you can clearly see something's not working, it's got to go at this point during this season in the second half of the year. Okay. And so that is a bit of what this energy is asking us to do. It's to take a look at which problematic areas of our thoughts or behaviors are just undermining where we're trying to get to, and be accountable for that, and to make some new choices, so that we can timeline jump and stop repeating cycles. Thank goodness we've got a timeline jump opportunity here. So, and that's given to us by the North Node in Uranus connecting in the way they are. North Node of the Moon is the direction of collective growth. Uranus here is the new, it's the next, it's the divine spark energy, it's revolution, change, and transformation. And when those two come together, they collide like they are right now this year, which is rare. They don't do that often. It's a huge opening of an ability to get on a completely new timeline in our lives. But in order to do that, we're being given this period of reflection so that through our actions, thoughts, and behaviors, we can stop creating the old and get into creating the new, right? So this is graduation energy. And especially with Mars and Earth conjunct, manifestation and ambition and will. These two are asking us to manifest new and different by acting different. And so it's time. It's time to start moving in new directions and doing new things. But it's being really prompted by a trip with Mars in retrograde and thinking sign Gemini and squaring, Nessus's ruminating energy. It's being prompted by trips down memory lane. And so you may find at this point you're doing a lot of reflecting around what's happened, how you've shown up, how other people have shown up, how you felt about that, right? And where you want to go next. That's, again, leveraging the Virgo energy for discernment, making decisions, which is great. And that way we're able to make appropriate adjustments. And this is going to be, like I said, especially true in our partnerships, since Juno is so highlighted, in our commitments to ourselves and others as Saturn is involved and Saturn deals with commitment. there's a vibration to this that because of the way the eclipses worked and the Saturn Uranus squares worked, there's a real there's something going on in here where there's something in our lives where we just can't see it the same way we used to. And I want to say for many of us, this is going to be certain relationships. The way we used to view that person or what we used to get out of that connection or the way we used to operate or the way they have been operating, it just, for whatever reason, it doesn't feel the same. For whatever reason, it doesn't look the same to us. And it's because we've grown. And so now what's happening is we're being asked to have our life reflect our growth, reflect our change, reflect our transformation. So if you really want to talk through this in more detail, especially if you're one of the mutable or fixed signs, like doing a brand new thing is just not your nature. Cardinal signs, I know that's you all day, every day, 3 times on Sunday. But fixed signs like to maintain the status quo, and that's their gift, is their capacity, come hell or high water, they maintain. Mutable signs, they kind of bend and flex, but in the shadow, they can bend and flex too much in order to just stay in a comfort zone. So if you're witnessing yourself needing to do a new thing in work or career, family, home, communication, school, business, right? Relationship, but it's like, but which new thing do I do? You want to talk through some of the options. We can do that in a private session. Like I said, the January calendar is open. This Mars retrograde energy is with us through March. Don't hate me. I didn't make Mars do that. But this energy, thankfully, is with us through the middle of March. So we have plenty of time for trial and error. But March isn't the time to start. March is the time to have had your clarity because you have experimented in the lab between now and then. Okay. So clarity comes from action. You want to know which actions to take. Let's chat about it. All right. kmoonastro.com is how you book, or there's a link below this video. Other energies unfolding is we've got this Jupiter sextile Pluto. Sextiles bring benefit, but only if we're willing to work for them. They're not blessings that fall upon on our heads. They're blessings we reach for with our hands. The two of those, Jupiter is expanding our Pluto power to change. There's a need to block out distractions in this energy and really focus. There's, again, a visual I was seeing as I was sitting in this energy. The visual I was seeing was like trying to accomplish a project in a classroom with many different children, and some kids just they just don't want to do the assignment, don't get the assignment, or lack the resources or the tools internally to be able to complete the assignment. They need assistance. And so instead of just getting it done, they're like out here poking you and trying to chat you up and kicking you under the desk, pulling your hair, just generally being distractive in nature. That can happen in this energy where you're like, okay, I know I need to focus on this. And like so and so and so and so are trying to raise their issue to the level of urgent problem in my life. I'm sorry, I'm not taking that on. That's your stuff. I got my own thing to deal with. Like there's a real need to maintain your focus in this energy about what experiments you need to run and let other people experiment in their laboratory and their lives. This energy can also be very dynamic in its ability to allow us to shift the circumstances in our life almost like overnight. You know, moving from apartment renter to home buyer, moving from, business owner to, selling the business and being able to live a kind of more vacation lifestyle. These kinds of changes can really happen with a Jupiter sextile to Pluto in this way. But again, it's about our own effort. We have to do something to get the blessing. It doesn't just, come out of nowhere. We actually have to work it. And there's a restoration of power in this for us as well. We've got Venus square Jupiter as well. And that Venus is conjunct Mercury. And so the interesting thing about that combo is that, especially with Jupiter and Neptune connected and Venus, this is just all my favorites, all the greatest hits. So this gives us spiritual connection, spiritual clarity and insight. So many of you may have found, if you pray, if you manifest, if you meditate, whatever you do to connect with source, and your own divinity within, that the energy of that has been quite amplified in the last 30 to 60 days. But this is now coming into an even more primed type of energy with Venus and Mercury in the mix in a square. Venus is magnet energy, Mercury is consciousness energy, and Venus sits in the sign of truth. Mercury sits in the sign of structure. At this 90-degree angle, they bring a little bit of tension. This could go a number of ways. When I'm looking at this, on the one hand, shadow energies abound. There's all kinds of, again, distractive, this is an energy that can create like illusions in relationship. Like, where you want to be and where you want to go, but you're telling yourself a story about it that's just not true. Whenever Neptune and Mercury are connected, there can be a lot of deception, lies, falsehoods, lack of clarity, those kinds of things. In the arena would be relationships, because Venus is here, or money in terms of your worth, charging what you're worth and then playing small, or overcharging with Jupiter square Venus, not really having clarity about market value and just wanting the market to bend to you. I mean, the combination, there's unfortunately, combined with the Mars retrograde, lowest vibrational potential here is just recklessness, relationship recklessness, financial recklessness. There's a lot of recklessness in this. Highest vibration of the way this plays out is lending itself to an expansion of faith, hope, and optimism about potential, and a curiosity to explore it, one step at a time. Like, okay, I see there's all this potential here. Let me explore this step by step and feel into the way the spiritual potential wants to manifest in the third dimension, one piece at a time. Okay. So, there's a scale in between those two that I just mentioned. And what moves the needle up or down the scale is free will and discernment. So do with that what you will as masters and divine beings incarnate, creator beings incarnate. We've got this energy here of Ceres trine Pluto. So here's Ceres, here's Pluto. Ceres is also opposite Jupiter. And we've got, what's interesting about this is when I look, Ceres governs the energy of seasonality. It's the energy of things coming at their right time and right season, and things going at their right time and in their right season. Now, what's interesting is that Pluto and Ceres have a very unique relationship. Part of why if you know the mythology of Ceres, Pluto kidnapped Ceres' daughter, took her to the underworld because he was so in love with her. Ceres brought human beings in the mythology understanding of planting time, harvest time, right? Fallow field time. She showed human beings how to work the land so they didn't have to continue to be hunter-gatherers. Pluto fell in love with her daughter, snatched her, took her to the underworld. Ceres went to the underworld to go find her daughter, and until her daughter was brought back, she wept, she grieved, and when her light went out, so too did the light for growing here on Earth. The crops died. Nothing blossomed until Ceres got her daughter back. And so Ceres and Pluto created some level of agreement that they would share time with Ceres's daughter, Persephone. Pluto got her some of the year, and that's known as winter, when Ceres grieves and her daughter's not there. Ceres gets her the other years, the other parts of the year. Then we have spring and we have fall harvest seasons during those other times of the year. So it's an interesting, because they're in configuration. Now they're talking, they are trying. And when they're speaking in harmony, their energies are flowing together. And so they're jointly connected to seasons. Pluto rules that resurrection cycle, death, afterlife, rebirth, the phoenix cycle. And so when you put these two together, and they're both in earth signs, there's a real message here, especially at a full moon. Full moons are completions and endings. Something's well and truly done in our lives. There's something that we've been dealing with that is well and truly over. Look, we've taken the meat off the bone. We've sucked the marrow out of it. There's nothing else to do with this bone. It is dry. It's time to let it go. It's time to release it. So I don't know what that would be for you. I would love to hear in the comments what you are recognizing. Like, yeah, I have outgrown this. It has outstayed its welcome in my life. I am well and truly done with it. It is time for me to move on. You know, Pluto and Capricorn, this could be structures. This could be work things. Ceres and Virgo could be anything regarding health and ways of being around health and wellness, or service work. But it doesn't have to be limited to just those things. It could be other things in your life as well, depending upon what houses Virgo and Capricorn cover. For my star schoolers, I want you to pay attention to what people and what circumstances Virgo and Capricorn cover inside of your chart, because that is where you will know, oh yeah, I'm done with this. It's time for me to do the new thing. Wherever that sits, certain things you're done with. So all of that to say, it's evolution time. It's time to move on. Like I've been talking about this for months now, especially with the Saturn Uranus squares. Do a new thing. Do a new thing. Time to do a new thing. Timeline jump. Window has opened. Are you doing a new thing? The season for new has been with us, I'd say probably since September. The demand for it has been with us in September, the prelude to the eclipse season. But it certainly started last year with the first of the Saturn Uranus squares that began transforming our lives. We've also got this conversation going on with Mercury conjunct Chariklo. No, I digress. That is not what's going on here. I saw that all the way incorrectly. Okay, never mind. I don't know what chart I was looking at where that was the case. Scratch what I just said. They are not speaking. Okay. And that's what I have. Do I have something more? We've got Vesta in conversation with Mercury and Venus. Okay, I like that. Yep. So she's in this conversation of sextile. And that's a real desire to communicate truthfully with our loved ones. Although it's just a little bit of fog here with Neptune in the mix, but nevertheless, it's not close enough to be wholly foggy at this point. There's a little bit more clarity than there would have been 2 to 3 weeks ago. But there's a desire in here to communicate truthfully. Venus in the sign of truth, Vesta being about commitment to our spiritual world in Pisces, and Mercury being about communication and structure. There's this desire to speak truthfully about things we value, and things that may be at odds with some of our spiritual commitment at the moment. We may have a spiritual commitment, to do certain things, but that's at odds with some of what we're recognizing is true for us. I'm trying to think of a good example for you guys. Like you can have a commitment to a meditation group at this time, but the truth is that right now There's so much of your third dimensional reality demanding change, growth, and transformation that you need to pause that spiritual commitment so that you can deal with your third dimension. That's one way this could play out. Another way this could play out is really recognizing that there's certain things going on in the world of what's true for you because you've transformed so much spiritually. There's just certain things you realize that used to be true that just aren't true anymore for you. Like it used to be true that, I had, that I thought of myself as single, right? But now the reality is, or a widower, but now I'm moving into the identity of being, a single person looking for love. It doesn't take away that you have a spouse that died. It adds that you are now in a position where you're not carrying when you meet new people, I have a spouse that died. You're carrying, I'm open for love. I am a single person ready to connect. That doesn't mean hide the fact that, no, don't hide it. Tell your truth, speak your truth. But where you come from, your orientation to what you're doing is now new. It's now different. And so there can be this recognition of like new and different in the world of our commitments and what we want to say about them and where we stand. I previously was in a place where, I wasn't ready for commitment. Now I am. I was previously in a place where I was ready for commitment, but certain things in my life shifted. Now I'm not, right? There's this desire to really communicate more truthfully with our loved ones about where we're at with certain things or what we value at this time. And this is a good time to have those more exploratory conversations. Like, yeah, our relationship has changed. I don't know what the next chapter is going to look like. Let's talk about it. What could it look like? Let's try some things out. Okay. And all of this is part of that trial and error energy of Mars retrograde. And part of the way we're integrating the 6 Saturn and Uranus squares that unfolded that have been saying, do a new thing. You can't stay the same. Not in this energy. You got to be new. So if you want to chat about it, time in my calendar is open. Find me over at kmoonastro.com. Like I said, the Mars retrograde energy is with us through March. Bookings are available in January, so we can look at this and your year ahead at this time. Thanks so much for all of your likes. If you'd like to stay tuned, I am going to jump into first look where we can have a look together at the new moon in Capricorn coming up in 2 weeks. All right. So now we are looking at the new moon in Capricorn, which takes place on December 23rd, 2022 at 5:16 a.m. If you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States, please check a time zone converter for your local times. This is my first look, my first perspective opinion. I haven't even seen this chart before, but this is my first perspective of the energies of the new moon in Capricorn and what it may bring. So we'll take a quick overview and you'll get the deep dive when we get closer to the date. But we've got the new moon here at the 1st degree of Capricorn sitting wholly too close to Pholus. I really don't like that. For me, Pholus is the energy of self-sacrifice, which it's not a bad thing. But it's the energy of kind of being in the wrong place at the wrong time with other people's stuff, really kind of hindering your ability to do what you need to do. A little bit of, I call it the energy of collateral damage, the story around Pholus and the Pholus mythology as one of the centaurs. He just got caught up in the middle of a war that was going on. And he ended up getting his centaurs were immortal, but he ended up losing his life because he caught an arrow that wasn't even aimed at him, wasn't even directed his way. Some accounts say he caught it. Other accounts say, it fell on his foot. It's very similar to the Chiron story in that way. but it ended up taking his life. And so there was a sacrifice of life. And I really don't like seeing that at a new moon. So that's an interesting first impression. I'm also seeing Jupiter squaring this new moon. And what else is going on so close to the tail end or beginning? We've got creation goddess here, and she's sextile. I like that better. Okay. All right. Hmm. My quick take on this, as I'm observing this, I'm gonna have to sit with this a little bit, but my quick take on this is that where there has been an unwillingness to make the changes that we've all been talking about, I've been talking about life is asking us to change. There's something that needs to change. I've been talking about this all year long. The number of thumbnails I have created with the word change in them in 2022, because that's what the energy has been talking about all year long, has been enormous. And so I'm seeing here, we are now coming to the end of a bridge season, which has been meaning to have us go from one state into a new state where we have, and there it is, all the cardinal energy. Last full moon, the one we just looked at, was all the mutable energy. Mutable energies are our bridges. Cardinals are the new. And so cardinal energy being in abundance at this full moon is really talking about, with Jupiter in the mix at the 0 degree mark now of a cardinal sign, the very first sign of the zodiac. Jupiter is going to be with this energy through most of 2023. This is telling me, Jupiter's in square the full moon, where you've not let go, but life has said let go. This is where fingers get snatched off at this time. And I hate to say that. I really do. But where you have been holding on to that which life has shown you, this has got to go. This has got to change. You cannot keep doing this and that way. This is where, instead of responding to the piece of mail, responding to the new knock on the door, responding to the tap on the shoulder, this looks like the proverbial 2x4. Unfortunately, I hate to say that, but it looks like that to me. Where you have already been in flow with the necessary changes in your life, what you're going to find with this energy is that it looks like some stuff goes on around you in life and the lives of people around you, but it mostly looks like, okay, here are some very specific there's some things that you knew you needed to change. You changed them. And now this just looks like life catching up to it. Like, oh yeah, I guess if I did change that, that was going to have to fall away. Like, oh yeah, I guess if I did take that one specific job that was no longer with those friends in this particular location, given that the new job requires more hours, even though it's a promotion, it requires more hours. Yeah, I guess it meant that I wasn't going to be able to continue to hang out with those friends. The structure, Capricorn, of my friendship life, if you have a Capricorn 11th house, was going to have to change. So if you've been keeping up with the changes, if you've been doing what you're supposed to be doing all this time, you're not behind schedule in any way. And those of you who are behind schedule, you know who you are. Like, you already know you're overdue. There's something you've been supposed to do. Life has been showing you, God has been showing you that you cannot continue to hold on to certain things in the way you've been holding on to them. If that's not you, when I see this energy, I just see your life catching up with the changes you've already made. If that is you, I'm seeing that with Pholus in the mix here, I'm seeing an energy of great consequence for being caught up in a place and location that you weren't supposed to be, because you were already supposed to be in a different place doing something else altogether. And so I really hate to say that, but I think the reality for us as masters incarnate, the reality for us as, divine beings incarnate, right? is that we have the ability to cause an action that, and we know from Einstein, always has an equal and opposite reaction. We can't always control the reaction, but we can control the action part. And so, I mean, look, there's 2 weeks, man. There's 2 weeks between you hearing the message of the full moon that we just had and the next new moon. If you can just take a step in a new direction, just in these 14 days, I can't guarantee there won't be any consequence in 2 weeks, but I can say you'll be in greater cooperation around stepping into the new thing your life has been asking of you rather than resistance. And so when we're holding on so tightly and life says, okay, I asked you to shift this. Now I'm going to demand that you shift this. If we're still holding on when life is like, no, you can't continue to have that. You need to let it go. If we demand and insist upon holding on, that's how fingers get taken off. That's how fingers get ripped off. If you're saying to life, you can only take this away from me over my dead body, life will look you dead in the face and say, okay, have it your way. And there will be sacrifice that you didn't intend, but that will unfold. And so there's a need. This is going to be a lesson for many of us in mastery around, you know what? I knew the right thing to do. I knew the right time to do it. I didn't do it. And there was consequence to it. And so lessons in mastery, sometimes they're uncomfortable. I get it. I've been there. Listen, if you know my story, you know my whole life was a series of lessons in mastery for a while until it came to a crescendo. It came to a head, and it was just like every 60 days, there was a new crisis that Kay could have prevented if Kay was just doing what she was supposed to do at the time she was doing it, barring a couple of things that I had no control over, like deaths in my family. But at that time, it was like there was a wave and a crescendo of all my undealt with ish that just compounded and piled up on me that I just kept kicking the can down the road on dealing with. And eventually the bill came due. And so I'm seeing that this last new moon in Capricorn is a season in which we are going to see the direct results of any procrastination that we have had upon delaying our new. And it may sting just a little bit, but it will also light the appropriate fire under butts needed to close out the Mars retrograde season by finally just do the thing you knew you were supposed to do in the first place. Like, get it done. Like, Mars finishes in March. So we still have a little bit of time left, but we're now entering the season of not just great consequence, but greater consequence for procrastination. And God bless a Capricorn. They are a cardinal sign that just does not believe in procrastination like ever. So if you have been needing to get into the energy of catalytic movement because you've been stuck or procrastinating, start calling in this Capricornian energy of like, I will take a disciplined action every single day until I start to see movement. I will do something daily until this thing shifts. Start doing that with yourself as we move into Capricorn season. You can leverage and harness this energy, even if you're not like that, because so many of the planets are going to sit in Capricorn all at one time. And that's going to give you the opportunity to get into this new structure. So, like I said, I hate to portend doom and gloom, but if you can take it as a mastery lesson and really paying attention to your prompts and unfoldment, and preferring to just receive a piece of mail than, knocking, breaking windows, tapping you on the shoulder and shaking you, then hitting you with a 2x4, which, hey, I've been there. That's been me in my life. If you can start to learn, like, okay, yep, the writing was on the wall about this months, years ago. I see where we're at now. It's just going to cost me more to get it done. Take the lesson for what it is and move into wisdom. Keep moving into wisdom. Use it for wisdom. Okay. All right. Creator beings incarnate, activate. You got this. I will see you at the new moon in Capricorn in the next video. But if you already are wanting to talk through this, because this new moon in Capricorn energy will be with us through mid January, second week of January, where the next full moon comes in, get on my calendar. It is open now. Take great care and bye for now.